Former President Donald Trump's new social media platform, Truth Social, will aim to combat censorship and the self-righteous scolds and self-appointed arbiters who Trump, in a statement issued by Trump Media and Technology Group, said decide what everyone else is allowed to think, say, share, and do. Trump went on to say, the corruption of these platforms cannot be ignored. We have fallen far down the slippery slope of our censorship in our country, and the topics that Americans are increasingly forbidden to debate are among the most important issues of our day. So, I was actually looking at the projected valuation now of this Truth Social, or even just his full-on media group that he's developing. And I believe when we first reported on this, it was like 1.6 billion was what they projected. And now I think it's at 2.4 billion. It's increased dramatically. So I'm not exactly sure why, it hasn't even launched yet. But people are very, very interested, and maybe people are agreeing with Trump, with what Trump is saying. What do you guys think?
Well, I agree with what he said. There is too much. There's a lot of questionable moderation decisions made on the major platforms. I think the Hunter Biden one is the one that comes to mind most readily. Obviously, how they treated the lab leak theory as well. There is a lot of people on the right have this, and actually people on the left as well. People outside mainstream thinking communities have the sense that I think is right, that there has been frequently too much gatekeeping. So good for Trump. He's welcome to give it a try. I think he's going to quickly find, or the people running the site are going to quickly find, that some of these calls are harder to make than you think. That it's not so clear cut what's censorship and what's sensible moderation. And his terms of service, make that clear that they have every right to do that. So I don't want to hear about this totally unregulated free speech space. It's not, but they can give it a go.
I don't think any real platform that has come out has said that they're a free speech platform. I think they've all kind of learned that that's not exactly what you want to be. I mean, you want to be freer. Well, but I don't hear any of them really coming out saying, "Oh no, we're free speech. You can just say whatever you want." We're like 8chan.
Well, that's what the Parler said. It was billed itself as the free speech platform.
Right. It's a difference between the messaging and the fine print in the terms of service.
Huge difference.
Parler, Rumble, Rockfin, like a lot of these places talk about being free speech, but then you're like, well, what about Right. And you can very quickly come to something that isn't.
Right. We did that with Jason Miller when he was on, right? We talked him through that. Yeah.
Right. And so this new Trump platform actually bars, in its terms of service, criticism of the Trump platform, which is going to get very interesting, because at some point, somebody on the platform is going to call for somebody's assassination or something, maybe tongue-in-cheek, maybe not. That person will get censored. Then people will criticize the decision to censor. Then people will get censored for criticizing Trump's platform, which violates the terms of service. And and it'll end up being like Twitter, where half the conversation is about Twitter.
Well, I guess it really depends on what they do end up censoring. So, I mean, obviously, I think sensible censorship is when you censor things that are illegal, right? So actual calls for violence against a person, doxing people, advocating for things that are absolutely illegal, such as child pornography or whatnot, right? So I think there's a big difference between actual illegal activity and harmful activity, and then other things that people are just saying is harmful. Saying, well, you hurt my feelings and therefore you're harmful, so you should be censored from this. Or we can't talk about the pandemic freely, or we can't, there's a variety of things that we're not allowed to talk about on other platforms that are not actually harmful. It's just that somebody doesn't agree, and because they don't agree, they've determined you're now a harmful, dangerous person. So I think it'll be interesting to see how do they end up moderating this platform? I think that's kind of what's interesting about any platform that launches, is how do they intend to moderate it? And so, but my experience, like for example with Rockfin, is that they actually don't say that they're a free speech platform. People who are on it might say that, but Rockfin itself doesn't say that. And for this very specific reason, that they want to be able to moderate against certain speech, because that is actually illegal speech, or deemed truly harmful, like I mentioned, doxing, for example. So, I think with these platforms, it's always how do they navigate through that with keeping people happy and feeling like they're able to express their thoughts, with what truly could be potentially dangerous to a person, such as doxing.
It's interesting. Well, and I agree with you that doxing very harmful. It should be prohibited on social media sites. But it depends how broadly you define doxing, because there are probably some things I would consider doxing that I think social media sites should have a policy against that would not actually be illegal if we're just talking about, like, I don't know, sharing someone's telephone number, right? I would like their cell phone number. I would consider that doxing. I would want Twitter to take that down. Not my cell phone number's fine, but because I'm a public person, I'm a reporter, but somebody else, some just regular person, I think Twitter would take that down, because I think that's considered doxing, but that wouldn't be criminal. You couldn't arrest somebody for doing that.
An address is interesting because addresses are generally public.
Well, but if you share an address with "let's all join together at 7 p.m. and we're going to go here," and then you say then you're getting time, place, you're getting imminent sort of lawless activity or harm, you start running into what the Supreme Court has said is incitement and can be prohibited.
Except people protest outside people's homes all the time.
Right. Like the mayor or something.
You have to have a plan. Right. You have to have a plan to commit violence in addition to saying, here's where we're going to do it, and here's when we're going to do it, and here's exactly what we're going to do, and it's going to be violent, and then you can have a problem with the First Amendment.
Although even that's debated these days, right? So, I mean, if you say, fight for our rights, we're going to show up to the mayor's house and we're going to fight for our rights.
Yeah.
It's like,
which I'm all for. We need to,
and
I advocate that all the time, because our authoritarian mayor in Washington, D.C. still has a mask mandate that I think is ridiculous. And I would be someone who would join a protest outside her house. And that is perfectly permissible. The First Amendment gives us all that right.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be, I think, in society in general. I mean, despite whatever Trump is doing or any of these other social media platforms, we do need to have a more robust conversation about what we should and should not be able to do on social media. What is the appropriate behavior? What is dangerous behavior? But right now, what's happening, and what I think this Truth Social is trying to get at, is, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, there's just a lot of things you can't say or do that, people are able to do and say even in just their normal life. They're able to have these conversations in normal life, but you can't have them on social media. And they're not dangerous conversations.
Yeah, no,
this conversation will continue here. Tomorrow on Rising, we've got another fantastic show. Brianna Joy Gray is back. As always, we'll discuss the big news of the day with her. Plus, Director of Advocacy with the Freedom of the Press Foundation, Parker Higgins, joins to discuss his organization's efforts to get the charges against Julian Assange dropped. Remember, he's got his hearing tomorrow and the day after. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you all tomorrow.